In the last lecture, we talked about the cardiovascular system and how it works in helping pump blood throughout the body. In one part, we discussed how the heart helps pump blood that is deoxygenated back to the lungs to help replenish it. In this lecture, we'll be looking at the respiratory system, which is primarily composed of the lungs, which helps breathe in oxygen and release carbon dioxide in order to help oxygenate the blood. So these two work in tandem with each other. So the respiratory system is defined as the system that delivers oxygen to various tissues and removes metabolic waste from these tissues through the blood. These are the main components that compose of the overall respiratory system, but what you really need to focus on the breathing mechanisms, the lungs, and the diaphragm. And these, combined with the trachea, help combine to make the full respiratory system. So the breathing mechanism is requiring the contraction of the muscles in the chest wall, particularly the diaphragm, which I mentioned in the previous slide. The contraction of the diaphragm and the external intercostal muscles help expand the lungs' volume, and the air that enters the lungs will then have more area for it to be in. For expiration, the external intercostal muscles and the diaphragm will relax, which will help push back up, and this will cause the lung volume to contract, which helps push the air out of the lungs. This is accompanied by the contraction of the abdominal muscles as well, and the elasticity of the lungs. So all the signs point towards this breathing mechanism that helps push the lungs in and out to help make more room for air when you're breathing in, and to make the lungs smaller when you're breathing out to help push out the air. So how this mainly works is through diffusion of gases. Alveoli, which are small branches within the lung and have small capillaries to cover them, are then used to help create this diffusion of gases to help move oxygen into the blood and carbon dioxide out. The inspired oxygen, which has just been breathed in, will transfer across the alveoli membrane to the red blood cells in the capillaries and attach itself to the hemoglobin. Carbon dioxide is then released from the hemoglobin and will travel in the reverse direction to the alveoli. The carbon dioxide is then expired as waste through the respiratory system and is taken out of the body through the breathing mechanism. Similarly, at tissues, the oxygen is released from the red blood cells and transported across the tissue membrane to the tissue, and the carbon dioxide will travel in the opposite direction into the red blood cell area. And that is mainly how it works. So when in the alveoli, the oxygen will travel into the red blood cells while the carbon dioxide will travel out of it. When it comes to the tissues, this oxygen will travel into the tissue system and the carbon dioxide will transfer out. And that is how the diffusion will help create this overall respiratory system to allow for breathing. That concludes section 2 of this introduction into biomedical engineering. I hope now, with the new introduction into the anatomy and physiology of the human body, you're able to understand more about the human system. With how much is going on, it's really important to help create new devices and new technology to help improve and make the lives of our patients better and for them to live longer. And there's so many different systems within the body that keeping all of these in check and making sure they're all healthy can be very difficult at times. However, as the biomedical engineering field grows, there are new revolutions to help make this easier and the process to become more available to everyone who is working in the healthcare industry.